As many of you might already know, I am a big fan of the Commodore C64 and I praised it in some of my speeches in my books as well. And although it starts to show an age, that is a kind of law that I don't think ever goes away. However, in modern times, using the original C64, I have a few of them still at home, isn't optimal. I mean, the connectivity options are not so good for modern TVs and monitors, but also they are getting older, and actually now using them, you even think, when is it going to break? Some of the components are prone to break, obviously. They become more museum pieces than actually usable, but there are many options to using the original hardware. And the Mega65 is now my go-to choice for doing a C64, but I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So other options are, for example, emulators. Emulators are great because they give the opportunity to try all kinds of old hardware on a modern computer like a PC or Mac or whatever, and they also give you a lot of options with graphics, so you can improve the graphics much better than just scanline CRT emulation, but you can do great things with that, including modern anti-aliasing and so on. I'm not a very big fan of CRT emulation with scanlines. When I used the C64 back in the days, I used it on TVs. Some mates would have monitors, but actually when you use it on TVs, the fact that the TV wasn't as sharp as a monitor to show in the signal gave you a free kind of anti-aliasing effect, which isn't the same as scanlines. I'm sorry, don't even try to get that. That effect made the picture a little bit smoother, and actually it helped the picture when you had all these really bad pixels. Because the truth is, a lot of the C64 games hasn't aged well, right? And the graphic is a little bit too blocky to age well. Some games do. Gianna's History is one that keeps on going, just like the original Mario. It is blocky, but the gameplay and the game kind of ages okay. But many don't. So, when you go back and play C64 games, sometimes you wish that it could be a bit better. Obviously, playing it now on a 4K screen with HDR, it actually looks worse because you don't get this effect, and the scanlines is not the real way to get away with it from my perspective. But the emulators can do that. The bad thing about the emulators is even on really modern hardware, you get lag. And I think that's funny for all the hardcore gamers today that talk about lag. The instant of using an original C64, when you did something, it happened like that. Obviously, there are milliseconds of lags there as well, but I mean, really playing the games and it happening like it is the same time is very different from modern PC gaming. But for me, on modern PC gaming, the input lag isn't the most important either, because the games are obviously made a little bit different. I prefer actually having the ground graphics and these things, and I can live with a little bit less frame rate, as long as you're not competitive. Of course, when you have to kill the other guy, it's always better with more frame rate. But the game's feel is made differently. And emulators with the USB lag, the OS lag and these things, it's actually difficult to play some of these games from the C64 era, more difficult than originally, because they don't feel the same, they don't play the same. That is something that you need either the original hardware or something close to it. You have the C64 and the C64 Maxi. I have one of those as well. The C64 Maxi is an emulator, right? It's a piece of hardware with an emulator in it. It is great because it looks like the old bread box, so in a way it gives you that new fresh feeling, and it's a good option. Yet it is an emulator, you get the USB lag to some degree. They have done a lot to minimize it, which is good. Of course, you have an emulator, you have access to some extra feature. It's not very powerful hardware, so you are limited to some degree, but still okay. Then you have other options, FPGA options. I do have the Turbo Chameleon 64 as well, which is a great piece of hardware with an FPGA on it. And for a long time that was my go-to platform for C64 with the C connected to the C64. The Turbo Chameleon can also work standalone, so be aware of that. I've never gotten into that because then you need a lot of extra pieces of hardware and keyboard and stuff. But it is a very good option, I would say, because it can also run other computers, cores and computers on its FPGA, like an Amiga, for example. I assume if I didn't have the Mega65, that would probably be still my go-to platform. Then you have the Mega65. The development on the core is ongoing, but it is really good already. The pictures that you see are from an alpha version of the version 5 release. I think it's Alpha 9. You see it's already really good, but the reasons why I love this, I mean, yes, you have the scan lines there. It is a kind of scan lines adoption. I'm not so happy for that. I would wish that there would be some other low processor intensive way to emulate a TV screen, not a CRT monitor. I do, but however, I can look through that. It's an FPGA, so it is almost like the real thing. There's so little lag that it feels like playing the real thing, even better maybe. You use old style joysticks, so obviously you will need good joysticks. So I got the Arcade R, and the Arcade R is amazing joystick. I wish I had that back in the time, because it really helps you become a better player. You can't blame the joystick when you have an Arcade R. And also the SID chip is so well implemented that it's almost like the real thing. And there's a difference, like I have hard SID USB sound card as well, and that is with real SIDs. And when I listen to that, I just get a smile in my face, and I get kind of a similar smile on my face when I listen to Mega65 SID implementation as well, because that's how good it is. Yes, and it's not finished yet. Also support stereo SIDs in its C64 implementation. When I talked about games not aging well, that's true, but demos actually age well, and they are still created, and also games are still created. The platform is very much alive, and especially the demos are so amazing. So yes, the graphic capabilities of the C64 is limited, but they still do some most amazing things with it, also audio-wise, but mostly in demos. Games do as well. I mean, games like Sam's Journey looks like a 16-bit game, mostly like a SNES Mario, right? It is fantastic to see what they're doing, and now we can do it on the Mega65. Also, the Mega65 has this fantastic keyboard. It is small. It feels like not a breadbox C64, but you know, the C64C, C128, and the C65, which is really what it is. So that's definitely the go-to platform. You have all the keys, you have the joysticks, you have the cartridge entry in the back, still being work in progress, obviously. You have SD card support, you have HDMI. HDMI doesn't work well necessarily for all the cores yet, so I got also VGA to HDMI converter for those. It depends on your monitor as well. The Samsung screens that I have, which is a Samsung TV, it doesn't support all the modes as well as some others. What's important as well is that because the core is being worked on, they are continuously improving it and actually adding more features to it. So in the end, this will probably be the best C64 ever. Also for gaming, I would say that the Mega65 is there. You can actually create an enhanced version of your C64 games, and I think that will be great for the active C64 development community. You can, if they want to, obviously you can have the C64 clean version and the C64 Mega65 version. Then obviously you will move from the clean C64 core to the Mega65 C64 implementation, so within the Mega65 core C64. But I think that will be really great, and I hope to see that. I also hope to see some of the active Amiga development, maybe also make enhanced versions for Mega65. Also kind of enhanced version of old games as well, if they are able to find source code or whatever. Because we need that, yeah. A game might not have aged well, but it can easily be fixed. Many of the games can easily age well with a little bit of enhancement. It doesn't need to be a modern style of game. We just need a little bit of brush up to fit better into the modern world for 40 more years or whatever, right? Because that's what the Mega65 really is. It's a modern implementation of a retro computer that can stay for another 40 years. Oh, yeah, okay. Maybe it won't, but at least for, you know, many more years, and keep the legacy of these old systems within their FPGA cores, but also modern systems. any system that FPGA can fit. That said, I think you can just enjoy the pictures and we will meet again.